So on July 3rd of 2018, this was just 2 days after Creation Fest, we just got home and I was at work goofing around with some buddies of mine. We were messing with some explosives. They were car airbags actually, the little thing that comes out of the steering wheel, smacks you in the face when you get in an accident. And I wired 4 of those up in series and put them in a little tire, put these plywood on it. And the goal was for me to sit on that and see how high up in the air I could go when we set them off. Well, it worked, and it worked good. That resulted in about 20 feet of height, and I came down on a hard dirt surface and ended up being paralyzed from the waist down right there on the spot. I ended up with a broken spine. My left ankle was a clean break right through. My right ankle was fractured in 2 places, and I had a lacerated lung. So that's what started all this.
He was a T12, which is right around your belt line for all intents and purposes, and an Asia A, which means a complete injury at that level with no motor or sensory function below that level. So first thing we did when Levi came in, we performed a neurological examination, and that examination consisted of sensation, the ability to register temperature, vibration, check reflexes, tone. And what we had come up with was at the time that this was all coupled with the imaging and the presentation, we looked to have what's called a complete paraplegia at the time of admission.
So the initial diagnosis for the first week or 2 was that I was a complete spinal cord injury, which means paralyzed from the waist down, never walk again, you're in a wheelchair the rest of your life. And that's just how it is.
After some deliberation, we decided to perform a study whereby we inject dye into the spinal canal, and we inject it below the level of the known lesion to see if that dye traverses or travels, if you will, through the stenosis or the tight area. Well, I have to be honest with you, when I reviewed the original films, I was probably a little bit less than hopeful that the dye would traverse. Just based on what I'd seen and having seen some of these injuries in a military setting, blast injuries, and the level of vertebral, what's termed distraction, or instead of the vertebra being one on the other, they were literally 90-degree angles. So that being said, we did the study, and I don't have the best vision anymore, but after much straining and magnification and whatnot, it looked as if 1, possibly 2 little pieces of dye had threaded through that area. That scan, the myelogram, is literally breathtaking in the sense, if there were 100 fibers going through, that glint, and I mean I was straining to see it, might have been 1, maybe 2. That's how small of the continuity was.
But God had other plans, and one day when the doctor came in to do their daily testing, they come in with a little beating stick, they whack it here, whack it there, can you feel this, can you feel that? And one day I did. I felt it when he whacked me with the stick thing, and it kind of surprised him because it wasn't supposed to happen. He was like, oh, it probably was nothing, it was just a reflex or something. Well, he blinded the study, which I looked up at the ceiling, closed my eyes, he did it again, whack it here, whack it there, and I felt it again.
And then what began to happen, in my opinion, was unexpected would be an understatement. You began to have movement in your lower extremities. You began to have sensation in parts of your bodies that you had not previously. And then you began to experience temperature sensation in your legs. And temperature and pinprick tend to predict future motor recovery. So that day was very, very humbling. Although we didn't have all the motor function yet, we did have those markers. And that was the beginning of our journey. And so it began with certain medications you were given to help the spinal cord and the coatings around it to give them the building blocks to heal. When we're young and in the womb, and then when we're developing, the mother's milk or baby formula will give you those same building blocks. So we tried to use some of that by using certain designer fish oil type derivatives, MCT oils, coconut oils, to get those same building blocks to give them back to you as you were healing. The other part was the therapies, by letting the brain send signals down through that breach to move legs, hips, musculature, etc. Now I forget honestly the length of time. I believe it was several months that all of this transpired over. But the truth be told, the mere fact that you have the ability to move your legs, I would say is miraculous based on that first time we met and the first scan I saw. Now the thing about an Asia A injury, it is less than rare for an Asia A to convert to an Asia B, which just means sensory, no motion, let alone an Asia C or D, which is what we witnessed here. The percentage is 0.03% that someone will even go from an A to a B, meaning getting some sensation but no quote-unquote motor function. The odds against going from an A to a C or an A to a D after excluding for spinal shock or an examiner that's not consistent with another examiner is almost unheard of. It's 1 in several thousand. Yeah, I've never seen it personally. So to say that this is an outlier in a good way is an understatement, quite honestly.
So I get asked a lot, what was the best and worst part of your whole experience being in the hospital for 2 months or whatever it was? And the worst part for me, I don't know, because none of it was really my idea of a fun time, but the best part for me, hands down, the best part was actually the first time I was allowed to take a shower. And that might sound a little funny to you, but if you're familiar with how the hospital system works, when you go through surgery and you have an incision or something, you're not allowed to get that wet or touch with anything else for risk of infection. So what they do in the meantime is they give you a washcloth and a pan of soapy water and say clean yourself. So you just do it the old-fashioned way. And it kind of works, but you just don't feel clean, And I remember the first time they finally gave me the go-ahead to take a shower. It seemed like forever. And man, I hopped in there, I grabbed that thing and I cranked it, and it was like full blast, just a thorough cleansing. And that was such a clear picture for me of what Jesus did when he died on the cross for us as Christians, because trying to get to heaven your own way is just like that washcloth and pan of soapy water. You try to do it your own way, but it won't work. It will never work because it can't. It's until you allow Jesus to come into your heart and allow him to clean the sin out of your life for you, that's the only way you will ever be thoroughly clean, because you cannot do it on your own. It's only if you allow Jesus to do it for you. And so that was just such a clear picture for me. If it wasn't for God constantly intervening in my life, I can honestly say that I wouldn't be here today, because when you hit a pain level that high of physical, mental, emotional, there's really no point of keeping on. I probably would have killed myself, to be honest, but there's a verse in the Bible that says there's a peace of God that passes all understanding, and that was so true for me, because, and I don't say this, like poor me or whatever, no, not a chance, but this was all kind of just dropped on me at once. I found out that I couldn't walk anymore. I'd probably be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. I could no longer work for a very long time. I couldn't go to college. I was supposed to leave for college the end of that month. I couldn't do that. My girl left me the second week I was in the hospital. She took off, and this was all kind of just dropped on me at once. And the funny thing is it didn't really touch me, and it kind of scared me, really, because I was like I should be reacting to this. I'm not. There's something wrong with me. What's up? And it's just like that verse says. It's a peace of God that passes all understanding. You can't explain it. It just is. It really is. Another big reason why I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God is just the fact I never would have been born. Maybe 2 or 3 other people know about this, but when my mom was pregnant with me in the hospital, the doctor had run a test and they found some, I guess it's called calcification around my heart, which from what I'm told means that there's a very high risk that the baby's going to be born with Down syndrome or some other mental deficiency. So the doctor recommended that my mom abort me and not have the baby, but she said, no way, we're having this baby. So I am happy to announce that Dr. Lost, I won, and I am completely normal, kind of. So if it wasn't for God, though, I really wouldn't be here.
Now, taken in whole and in summation, quite honestly, in my getting older, almost 3 decades, none of this should have happened, quite honestly. The initial scan, devastating. The initial couple weeks, no progress. He was out of spinal shock when he was here and still not moving. But I think the glimmer of hope, and I believe what tied this together for all of us, was that 1 or 2 little axons that appeared on that myelogram, which gave us some hope, and that coupled with the work ethic of not only Levi, but the staff here, and projecting positive energy onto him, and his faith and his family's faith, and I certainly encouraged anything that seemed to work. I truly believe his positive frame of mind and belief system most certainly contributed to this, because honestly, it defies almost any other explanation. So I'm happy to say that things are still going well. We're still recovering. Levi's doing outpatient therapy at this time. And although we're not quote unquote perfect compared to what we were before the injury, I think the mere fact that we're doing what we're doing and going to outpatient therapy, and we continue to make gains, is quite honestly miraculous.
I'm not worried about whether I'll ever get back to quote unquote normal again, because the man who built this vessel knows it can endure. I'm sailing with a master, and we've weathered storms before. So through everything that I've been through, being in the hospital and all that, I wouldn't change one bit of it for the world. I really would not. And I can honestly say through it all that I'm 100% thankful for the scars. I really